And so anyway, in this dream, God was in the dream and his presence was so hot. And I was explaining that that is the reason God usually keeps a separation with us now. In the Old Testament, you could see if God comes into a party, somebody's usually going to drop dead, because where the presence of God comes, it will electrify and electrocute sin. And this is why God in his infinite mercy observes a space between us. Moses was saying, oh, let me see you. Let me see your glory. And God said, I'm going to put you in that rock over there. And then I'm going to cover you with my hand. And then I will pass by. So you will only see me from the back. Because God was mindful of the fact that Moses could curdle like a fresh yogurt in there if God were simply to come and stand next to him and be God. So sometimes I have these dreams, and these dreams are so heavy on my body. I feel like I'm being cooked. I feel so hot. And it's such an uncomfortable dream until he finishes talking and goes. He's not always like that, but in that prophecy, blood to drink, he was like that. I thought that day was the last day for Celestial, because I was like, Lord, if you're just going to be angry like this, forgetting that I'm a human being, then have mercy on my soul. And so here's the dream. I was standing on a very high bluff. A bluff is a very sharp kind of ending to maybe a hill or a mountain or a plateau, but it comes to a very sharp drop like that. And it was the sharp edge of a hill, and it was dark already, meaning that we had already passed twilight. We're now deepening into dark, but it wasn't quite night. It wasn't night as in nighttime. It was darkness coming upon the land, but not nighttime. And this darkness was deepening and deepening. So this was not, please listen, it was not the organic process of afternoon, late afternoon, and then early evening, late evening, and then finally nighttime, the sun goes away and the moon comes up. No, this was darkness stealing up across the land. And this darkness was deepening so fast that it was almost turning into something else. And it was concerning me because I was on this steep hillside at night in the dark by myself, and I was hoping to see any kind of light. And so standing where I was, I had this vast array of terrain before me, like the whole place was in front of me. And I was turning my head first this way and that way. We'll just say east and west and whatever is in front, maybe north. And I was looking for any part of the horizon that had light. But all I saw in the distant horizon, as far as my eye could see, was this thunderous buildup of majestic, high height, red thunder clouds building up. So just the way you would think of a time lapse, there's a time lapse and these clouds are basically boiling up, red, thunderous, and very high, like plumes and columns going into the sky. And then the darkness is coming down and mixing on top of these clouds. And it was just not nice. So there was a valley in front of me, but at that time, I was not paying attention to the valley. I was not paying attention to the valley at all, what was in front of me. I was just looking at the horizon. I was looking at the time of day. I was looking at the rapidly changing landscape of the sky at that time. And then all of a sudden, these same small sparks that I spoke about in recent prophecies, where I said that we are going to see organic fires happening. And human beings, being who they are, being the Trumans that they are, will desperately want natural explanations for the supernatural things that are going to be happening. So human beings are going to tell themselves, well, we know that this fire is super hot because everyone who has been burnt by the fire has been burnt and fused to the ground like a nuclear reaction. People have been burnt to crisps. So we are forced to admit, based on our years of expertise, that this was a very, very hot fire. But they will struggle to know how such a hot fire started in a stadium. They will struggle to know how such a hot fire started in the desert. When you go out to these Coachellas in the desert and Burning Man in the desert and whatever, they will be struggling to know how a wide open area that is well ventilated with no trees, meant for people to stand and say, we love you, we love you. They will wonder how a fire could have started in a bald place that does not support a fire. But I've already explained. I said that sparks will kindle in the air out of nowhere. God has things up his sleeve that if human beings, if you actually knew who this person was, you would go to church half the day and then come home for the rest of the day and really build on your personal knowledge and experience with God. If you knew the things that God could do, and you can't claim that you don't know it because you have a Bible, and in that Bible, he was opening seas. He was healing leprosy. He was raising the dead. He was making axe heads, which is pure smelted metal, float in water. You drop your fork to the bottom of a full sink 1,000 times a year, if not 10,000 for the heavy eaters. You have never seen your fork float. But the Bible tells us that the prophets in the Bible had the ability from God, and they caused iron to float in water. And then because you were living in an age where you're like, Alexa, how far are we from the venue? Then you will act brand new, like you never saw God before, and that you don't have a Bible to read and find out who that is. Sparks are going to kindle out of nowhere, and the people in that nowhere are going to get harmed beyond all reasonable harmation. And that is just for the wise. If you can understand, you will remove yourself from harm. If you want to test it out, because you're one of the people who always come here and say, I haven't seen anything major fulfill yet, you will be part of that majority. The major majorities are on the way. So that fire appeared nowhere, out of nowhere in the sky, and that thing started falling to the earth. And when I say the earth, it was just falling by and large. Sparks kindling. Remember, I'm standing on a bluff and I'm just gazing at an expanse, and this is representing the earth. Sparks just appeared. The small sparks that fly off a fire. You know, they go pop, the wood will go pop. And then a tiny spark is there, and before that thing even falls, it's off. That's how small sparks are. So that was what was happening, and it was falling to the earth. And those things were so hot. Because as I was looking, something made me look up, and I saw that sparks were also kindling above me. And they hit me, and wherever they hit me, I flinched. Because the fire was very painful, even though it was so small. And I kept saying, ouch, 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 ouch. And then I quickly pulled my sleeves down, and I was looking for something to cover my head with. And I was saying, Lord, I don't want to be burnt by this fire. Lord, don't let this fire fall down on me. And I started brushing them away before they could hit me. And I noticed that if the spark was falling and you brushed at the air that was carrying it, it swirled away and it didn't hit me. And so I started brushing them away before they could hit me, because they were still coming down, but I was swiping them while they were still in the air. And the majority of them were leaving, but some sparks were still hitting me because they were increasing in the size and pace at which they were coming down. And then I became drawn. My eyes were drawn to the people in the valley, and the people in the valley were very upset. They were running here and there. But when the fire started hitting them, so they were already upset and they were already in upheaval and everything like that. But once the fire started hitting them, these people became truly violent, vocal, and upset. The tone, I couldn't hear what a single person was saying. You know what it is when you can see a protest, you can see a demonstration, people are angry. It's just like, rah, 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 rah. It was like that. But the tone of it changed. They were already protesting, they were already shouting, but once that fire started hitting them, the entire sound and the tone that they were making down there increased. And it became so filled with anger. It became so filled with urgency and rage. And then I began to see people running back and forth. And now they were fighting the police, fighting among themselves. And above them, the sparks of the fire increased to where now I began to long for a thick coat, or at least one of these fire retardant jackets that the firemen wear, or a fire retardant blanket that they sometimes will wrap around people to keep them safe in the event of a forest fire. I now began to long for something that was specifically to do with fire and removal of fire, because with all the things that I was doing to keep the sparks off me and everything like that, those sparks were now coming down almost like a rain, and they were falling everywhere that I could see into the valley where there were so many people. And I called out to the Lord and I said, Lord, stop making this fire. Stop making this fire, Lord. Stop making this fire to fall on me. Please stop this fire. And then the wind suddenly changed, and the wind took the sparks that were coming down over my head in the area where I was. It captured them and it carried them away to join the sparks that were in the valley. So the Lord removed the fire from over my head. He removed it from falling on me, and he sent it to join the rest of the sparks in the valley. But I was still uncomfortable in that dream due to the dark skies, the falling fire from heaven, the angry deep people in the valley below, and the heavy presence of the Lord watching over it all. And the Father spoke to me. So it was like he was in this darkness, this boiling sky. He was there, and I was on the hilltop, and I saw as if he was talking down to me from that hilltop. And he said to me, his voice was so serious and so big, like I said, that I was not exactly happy in this dream, because as he was talking to me, my skin got so hot in real life, my chest and my organs heavy, that I could hardly wait to wake up from the dream and be normal again. Yah said that the nation of Kenya can never be allowed to defeat the beast system. This prophecy is for Kenya, the nation of Kenya that is currently in tumult, currently in turmoil, currently burning everything that their young people can get their hands on, extremely angry, calling for the resignation of the president, demonstrating in the streets. The whole country is up in arms. Even the old people that can't join the protests are upset. And the Lord said that the nation of Kenya can never be allowed to defeat the beast system. African countries, you must listen in. You must listen in. Don't listen and think, oh, this is Kenya's prophecy. Yes, this is Kenya's prophecy, because Kenya is going to be the Truman for you to look at how it works. After you hear this prophecy, if you still insist on sleeping, then you're sleeping on your own. So if you're African, whether you're diaspora, whether you're at home in your country, wherever you are, listen. Kenya can never be allowed to defeat the beast system. They will never be allowed to have the last word or a permanent victory. Therefore, look for them to be defeated by the same government in the near future for doing what they did, for going on TV, for striking back at their government which they elected. They shall never be allowed to make this example and remain. The beast system will strike at them harder than ever before by the same government. Ruto is the same one who will do this to them. This government that they have sent scattering in the streets is the same one that will form a fist of oppression and strike back harder at them. They are fighting for their freedom, but they will not have it. For no government that is under the control of the beast system shall allow its people to offend them like this. They will be told what to do from the head, and then they will do it. Fires of revolution are coming to the nations. And yes, they will burn for a while, but eventually those fires will be put out. The final rise of the system that tramples the residue is in movement. Soon, protests will be met with armed force and police brutality that is far beyond the norm. And when it does, people will cry out from their woes and oppression. Yet this shall not stop the advance of the beast system, nor shall it cause the hand of control to retract. The beast will use cunning, craft, magic, dialogue, witchcraft, seduction, artifice, manhandling, disinformation, and brute force to achieve its objectives. People will crumble in front of this system like bread, and their needs will only be met as long as they comply. And so, the prophecy that I first made about Kenya was over a year ago, just a little over a year ago. I made that prophecy on April 27th, 2023. And at that time, I was observing to the people in the United States the fulfillment of a previous prophecy that had been made in September of 2022. saying that God revealed to me that the pastors are murderers, that the pastors are killers, that the pastors actually commit murder to hide the sins that they are involved in. So a pastor will be involved in sin and somebody finds out about it. Pastors also would commit murder to hide ambition. So if a junior pastor or a medium pastor wanted the senior pastor's position, then yes, there could be a poisoning. And since he is the next obvious choice, then he gets the chair, he gets the church. And God was just basically saying that the pastors are also in the occult, that the pastors are part of multiple brotherhoods, that the pastors are part of multiple sects, they are part of lodges, they are part of all manner of evil covenants. They are serving Satan. It's just that in America, the God that they join and serve is the Baphomet, this one that has an overarching control over movies and music industry and the pastoral lineage and all of them. That's basically that version of the God. But Satan is Satan no matter how many hats he's wearing. Just because he's diversifying doesn't mean that we don't know that he is at the core of all these rebellions against God. And so God was talking about pastoral murder. And I was sharing with people that this thing that happened in Kenya, which was so heinous, was a textbook example of the kind of mass killing of people who keep following false pastors. But in that prophecy, God also said that the President William Ruto was going to find himself in trouble because he was going to be governing a much different Kenya than the Kenya he inherited. God says that he was going to find himself governing a very different Kenya to the one his predecessors gave him. The Lord made the remark that this man was a good man. And up to this moment in time, Kenyans are reacting so strongly and with so much rejection and vitriol of this statement. But by the time this prophecy is done, you have a better understanding of what that statement means and especially how it relates to you as a Kenyan. My rule of thumb is that when you come here, you should understand that I'm not sitting here having political commentary, social commentary, biblical commentary, or religious commentary of my views. You will never know my views. If you watch the videos, these are my views. Exactly what God says, they are the same views that I have. Because nobody who is in their right mind as a Christian is going to hear God state what his views are and then say, but I don't know, can't we moderate that? And can't we find a side panel and let's have diversity and inclusion? Every right-minded Christian knows that God never strays from his word. And so if God has views and you have other views, then you may be something else. But I know one thing that you are not. You are not a believer. You are not a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ. You are not a Christian. You don't belong to the Lord's fold, because he doesn't have strays in there. The Bible says, my sheep know my voice and they follow me. A stranger they will not follow. That goes without saying that the stranger and his strange doctrines, God's sheep will not follow. So I don't speak of my own self when I'm here. I'm speaking what God has given me. And if you can hear, then you can hear. If you can't hear, then that is with you. So a year ago, God says that Kenya was going to come into economic problems. Kenya was going to have economic woes. God said that Kenya is going to have a very, very, very difficult drought and famine. And it should be understood, as I said in that prophecy, that you cannot have a famine without a drought, because it is the lack of rain that will cause the nation to be able to produce less food. And when food is less, the one thing that always happens is the price of the food goes up, because it becomes what we call a dear commodity. Less food will always be more expensive. And when food is more expensive, you are bound to have revolution and backlash. God also said that William Ruto was going to be experiencing public backlash. And if you can see now, there's a lot of Kenyan commentators, and the one thing they keep saying is, we've never had something like this before. We don't have something like this before. That is because Kenya is known to be law-abiding generally and quite peaceful and stable. It is a diamond of a nation, rich in natural resources, rich in wildlife. Also, the people are a valuable resource in it, in what their temperament is like. They're not hot-headed usually, but what is happening in Kenya is a point-on fulfillment of the prophetic word that was given just a little bit over a year ago. And now God is bringing Kenya an update to their prophecy. And this is what he is saying. Kenya, you will never be allowed to defeat the beast system. You're in the streets right now and you're upset, and you may have a right to be upset if people are trying to hike taxes on you when you're already not being paid fair market value for your labor. Maybe the economy is contracting. I don't know what the social or the economic situation is over there, because that is not my portion. My portion is to read out what God is telling you and to interpret it for you so that you will not be confused. And what God is saying is that Kenya, which is right now a typology of a fiery revolution. The title of this prophecy is The Fires of Revolution, the Rise of the Beast System. So Kenya is a typology of a fiery revolution that has risen up because all the Trumans in the nation of Kenya have started to realize that there's some very rotting fish in the country. The country is not smelling so fragrant as it was when Kenyans were dancing a year ago to welcome their new president, to have him come in. They were happy. They were excited. They chose him. You chose him. But now he is in, and he seems to be wearing another skin. And this is why you take umbrage with the old words in the prophecy that says he is good. I'm here to let you know that when good men come into positions of power, they deal with pressures that you at the lower level, that we at the lower level know very little about. Here in America, there's more of an understanding because people know in America that absolute power corrupts absolutely. In America, there's a very wide group of people who understand that it doesn't matter how clean cut a man is. It doesn't matter how well-meaning a man is. It doesn't matter how committed to his faith a man is. The minute that man begins to draw near to the centralized magnetic pole of power in the United States, he's going to end up gay. He's going to end up cruel. He's going to end up having affairs. He's going to end up snorting cocaine surrounded by 18 hookers, unaware that he is being taped, because he will get an invitation to a party and he will not know that every woman at that party has been paid. They will all be his type in all the various hair colors of the world. Every woman at the party who is single will be paid. And the reason that all those women will be paid is because his enemies are saying, it doesn't matter if Keisha gets him or if Marcy gets him. All of you focus your attention on him, and eventually one of you will be successful, or two or three of you will be successful in saying, I'm staying at the same hotel. Would you like to come up? That room is already bugged. Senators, hear the reason why you can't vote freely, because most of you know this is how you went down. America, hear why special interests have captured this nation. They go off to conventions. They go off to different high-level conferences, the heads of power. But there they have paid blonde boys and paid muscle brunette boys. And if black is your thing, then they have black boys. And if Asian is your thing, then they have Asian boys. They have all the flavors, because to catch a fish, you only need the right bait. And so when people get near the core of power, that thing is rotten already, because Satan has taken it, because he is the God of this world. He demands dues. And so as you're climbing the ladder, it's not impossible, but it is almost improbable that you will be able to rise to the top or near the very top without being taken. And so Kenya, if you don't understand why your president has suddenly gone from light to dark, it's because the magnetic core of power that is centered here in the United States, which is the seat of the beast, has got that man. So hearing this, Kenya, you can then understand what God is saying to you. Your president is now corrupted. And if you want to know why your president is corrupted, the answer is very simple. You yourselves are corrupted. There's a very high sex rate in the nation of Kenya. And God has been saying this as I was wrestling with this 6-day Kenya fulfillment video. There's a very high rate of sex in the nation of Kenya. And this is sex that pretends to be born again. It's not even like here. People don't pretend to be saved. Well, they are saved and having sex here, but then they'll just say something like, God knows my heart, or don't judge me. Don't judge me. It's been a while, or something like that. But in Kenya, because the nation used to be so God-centric and so God-focused, the culture frowns on open sexuality while saved. There is a massive, massive contingent of people in Kenya who claim that they are saved, and they are sleeping with everything that moves. A high presence of the spirit of lust in that country. Very high, and lying about it through your teeth. Getting together to have late night 6-hour marathons talking about we're praying in the spirit. I invited the sister over to my house to pray in the spirit. Why do you tempt the Lord? Why do you tempt the Lord? People, you're fornicating, and then you're covering it up with the mantle of Christianity. Let me tell you something flatly here. If you count among your friends, and your friends say they are Christian and they're sexually active, to the height of the number you can count on your finger, so go you. Because bad company corrupts good morals. If you can only count 1 or 2, that is the distance. You are 1 or 2 steps away. You can count 5 or 6, you can just know that you're about to be the 7th in no time. The higher number you can count, the higher potential that you will fall into that sin. Because demons will not tolerate the light of Jesus Christ around them. It's either you will evangelize and leave. You will not be able to keep their company. You will have to treat them as anathema. You will have to treat them as people who are not born again that you are trying to witness to. But if you are Kenyan, and if you are watching this video, and you are a fornicator, William Ruto is God's gift to you. William Ruto and everything he is doing, once good, now corrupt, is God's gift to you. Once pure, and now a fornicator, an adulterer, someone who indulges in masturbation. Someone who has a very lustful inside and loves to look at men, or loves to watch porn, or loves to look at women and fantasize about them. Watching your president go dark is how it feels to God watching the nation go dark. Pretending to be light, yet dark. He is heaven's payment and gift to you. For when a nation falls into sin, God will allow cruel and unjust leaders to rise up in oppression over them. Cruel kings arise when the nation is itself cruel to the Most High. So that is just for your understanding. When you hear God give messages, the first thing that we should do is to try to say, if the message that I'm hearing doesn't match up with reality, it only means a few things. It means that it's matching up reality in a way that I don't yet understand. Or it's going to match up to reality. The fault is never with God. The fault is never with what the Lord is saying. But when it comes to the Kenyan situation, God says that you can never be allowed to defeat the beast. And the reason you can never be allowed to defeat the beast, Kenya, is because the nation behind the beast is the one that I'm sitting in right now. It's America behind the beast system, the seat of the beast system. The greatest beast masters are here. The architects of destruction. I've been calling them since I started writing these prophecies in 2019. The architects of destruction will never allow any African country, any Latino country, any Southeast Asian country, anybody to rise up and embarrass the beast when the beast is in the process of implementing new laws, new times. He will think to change the times and the laws. This is biblical prophecy. You will never be allowed to defeat the beast system because the beast system is itself a spiritual reality. And a wise person, no matter what you hear in these prophecies, the minute you peg what you hear back to the Bible, you will feel this peace. No matter how so-called scary it sounds, you will feel this peace. How can you defeat the beast system when it's written in God's book that the beast system will prevail against every tribe, every tongue, every people. He will wear out the saints of God. As we go in this prophecy, you will hear how you will be worn out. How can you feel that the uprising in the human heart will unwrite what is written in the Bible? Where will God be? Where will God be when this is happening? That the rise of human collective refusal to be used, to be trampled, to be controlled. Where will God be if simply because we didn't like it, we could rise up and push off what is coming? Do you not know that what is coming is our punishment? Do you not know that the rise of the beast system is simply the conclusion of the generational corruption of man? So who's going to defeat that storyline? Who's going to say, well, we are the ones living now and we revolt in Nairobi. We will burn everything and then they will stop. God says that this government is going to strike you back. Kenya, God says that this government is going to strike you back for what you are doing. And please don't misinterpret my words and say, oh, Celestial then told us to capitulate. I'm not here to ever tell anyone what to do. What happens at your house, what happens in your nation, what happens, the choices that you make. My job when it comes to Christianity, yes, I certainly will preach it as it is. Deliver these prophecies as they are. But when I'm telling you the facts of what God is saying, it doesn't mean that I'm giving you advice. He says that the fires of revolution will burn. So many other nations will join you. You're not the first. We've been having these upheavals ever since. We've even had minimized ones here in America. We had the whole trucker thing in Canada. It's just not going to change anything. God says that Kenya can never be allowed to have the last word over the beast system. Kenya can never be allowed to have a permanent victory over the beast system. So he says, look for them to be defeated by this same government in the near future. Now, the government already came out and fought you, beat you, and killed people using live rounds on a crowd. Moved from the rubber bullets, moved from the other things, killing people with live rounds. But he says that there is a defeat coming in the near future, and it's coming for what you did. So for daring to revolt. And then he also says for going on TV. What does this mean? Kenyan youth made the cover of the New York Times. Kenyan youth, this uprising that is happening, made the covers of one of America's most major publications. Because I don't think it was the Post. It was the Times. You're on the front cover. So this is, to the Klaus Schwabs of the world, this is the kind of embarrassment that they can do without. When they do their evil, they want to do their evil in a way whereby it's contained. So ideally, they wanted President Ruto to introduce whatever he's introducing and to tell you he's doing it because he's the president and he's mandated to do it. There are legal provisions allowing him to do it. The parliament that he was yelling at are his supporters. This is what he would want to do. And then the way they do it is they just change the times and laws and just slide it right on in there. 1 minute Americans were free and the next minute we're living under mandates. 1 minute we were free, the next minute they just locked people up and told them, get it or you lose your job. Your arm or your job. It was suddenly the new rule. Suddenly you had to choose. Do you want to still get a salary? Do you want to still eat? Do you want to still look after your family? Or do you want to keep your arm and then lose everything? This was the choice we were faced in. That's their modus operandi. It's to slide it in and then just pass it and say, we're the government, we're doing it for your best interest. But because God had prophesied and said that there would be public backlash, the people did rise up to fight it. So now they're embarrassed. Now they're backpedaling. Now they're using what we call peace and safety, conciliatory language, like saying, consequently, listening to the dialogue. I was just listening and saying, God, what dialogue was there? What dialogue was there? These young people were burning chairs inside the parliament building. They were chasing the members of parliament out and burning the seat of government. There was no dialogue. There was backlash. But they will have to play it off for the sake of embarrassment, for the sake of the shame. But you must understand that who you shame in the public becomes your enemy. Who you shame in the public becomes your enemy. And God says that this government is going to form a fist and is going to strike you back. And because they are government, they have the prison system on their side. They have all the footage of the youth that they can go and look back at. If it was in this highly digitized nation, they would have the identities of everybody simply through facial scanning on those tapes. They have jail on their side. They have targeting on their side. They have gang stalking on their side, where they will assign the cops to start following the ones that they have managed to identify, the so-called ringleaders, those who are known, whoever they may be. They have the benefit of time. They have the benefit of infinite state resources, and they have the heat of embarrassment and revenge in them. And God says that a fist will be formed, and the same government that you sent scattering in the streets will form that fist of oppression and strike harder at you. They are fighting for their freedom, but they will not have it. For no government under the control of the beast system shall allow its people to offend them like this. It's not really the Kenyan government that you offended. It is the beast system that came to put chains on Kenya and met with a strong resistance, a stronger resistance than it's used to getting. So while human beings will battle like the angry people in the valley, they will battle at the small level. Fires of judgment are going to come from God on all nations who carry out satanic policies instead of godly policies. And many of these countries have given up so much power because of the need for aid money, because of the fact that they're very small and they've never had independent international voices. Have you ever seen them give Guam or Haiti the floor at the United Nations? Have you seen it? Because I haven't seen it. They don't make them the chair of anything. They don't make them the lead of anything. They don't put the small in the front. The small are created or expected to follow the large. And so fires will break out because the beast will be changing. The beast will be making changes to the reality you know. And you won't like it, whether you are in Kenya, whether you are in Uganda, whether you are in South Africa, whether you are in Bissau, Guinea-Bissau, Mauritania, Mali, Liberia, Ghana, Togo, Benin, wherever you are, Ethiopia, Eritrea, it doesn't matter where you are on that continent. They will change it. And when you start to feel it in your flesh, when you start to feel the increased prices in your flesh, when you start to see the unfamiliar landscape in your flesh, Africa, you will become a land of QR codes. This has been on my heart to say. You will become a land of QR codes. The QR code is that thing that is on, it's on billboards. It activates with websites. It activates with sales. It activates with the time the train is coming, the time the bus is coming. It's an information hyperlink that is not written with words. It's just something that looks exactly like a barcode. You will become that land. They will make it seem like such a fun project. They will put it up on all the billboards and they will tell you, scan your QR codes for a free gift. Scan your QR code for more airtime. You're going to see it being rolled out by the heavy hitters. It's going to come out from the big media houses. It's going to come out from the people who handle entertainment. Is going to come out from the telecommunications company. You'll see the electrical company saying that no more standing in line to pay your bill. Pay your bill online through the QR code, and you will become a nation that's just like us, forever holding up your cell phone to scan a QR code. That stuff has been here forever, but they're going to make it very novel. And the reason it's going to be novel is because this is a wired society. But not all of Africa is wired. If you tell people scan the QR code and it will immediately log you in through a personalized link into your bank account, what is your 73-year-old grandmother going to do with that? She doesn't even bank. She wraps it up in a can. She wraps it up, her money, in a can with a rubber band, and that's been her bank. That's what she knows she trusts because she can keep her eye on her finances. This thing that the beast is doing, it will leave a lot of people behind. And so you should look for a lot more familiar, famous faces to start landing in African countries, because they know that nothing sells lies like celebrity. You should start looking for a lot of famous faces. Don't be surprised if Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk come over there, because they know you will lose your minds. The tech gods have landed in Africa. I can see the headlines already. They will come there personally to sell this wired society to you. They will improve the internet. I have been saying it for years, that in order to control a society, you must have access to its information. You must have access to the inside thoughts of the people. That's what Facebook is all about. That's what social media is all about. It is a window for the government and the controllers into the minds of the people. And my, how the people do love to talk. How they love to talk. A wired society is a monitored society. A wired society with fiber optic cables underneath the ground to make the internet faster, so that it can be faster for you to go online to the porn websites that are going to start flooding that continent. Flooding that continent like you can't believe. Then the soft porn shows. They will take away your Nollywood movies and they will replace it with soft porn. Because soft porn increases lust, lust increases sin, sin incurs the wrath of God, and then God will judge a country, and then Satan will laugh. It's a time-honored tradition in the dark world. There is a playbook that the devil follows, but the unwise continue to be prey and trapped because they don't know that playbook, because they don't spend time with God to learn what is righteous. Once you learn what is righteous, you can never, ever love or want or go back to what is unrighteous. You would have to have a prostitute heart that would eat of good, that would taste of the Lord's ways, and then go back to your vomit. There's a reason that punishment is so harsh for people who go back to the vomit, because you're basically telling God, I hung out with you a while, but you didn't quite do it for me. You don't get to reject God and then ride off into the sunset. It doesn't work like that. It's Satan who will repay you, mostly, for that. And so they're coming with their toys. They're coming with their modernization. I told you in one of these prophecies, as the Lord brought it upon my heart, I'll tell you again, when you see them fixing the roads, when you see them fixing the lights, when you see them fixing the schools, it's the bribery for what is coming after. It is the extension of a hand of friendship, but that hand is bringing death. I'm not saying don't have roads, and I'm not saying don't have schools, and I'm not saying don't have improved classrooms. I'm saying that you can't shake hands with a bear and then be surprised when the thing rips your arm off. It's a bear. And so God says that the final rise of the beast system, all nations, please listen in. When the final rise of the beast system kicks in, these people are not going to be polite anymore. This is where trampling the residue. This is when you can't win them, when you can't win them with toys, and you can't win them with celebrities, and you can't win them with give up your money for the digital wallet and let all your babies have the Maisha card. Let it be embedded somewhere on the skin for all the newborns in 2030. When you can't win them with soft words and you can't win them with it's for the greater good, then this is where force will come in. This is where the beast system will establish itself at the point of a gun. This is where it will establish itself with lockdowns, with more mandatory mandates, with crushing up constitutions and taking away basic civil rights in order to quell dissent. In other words, to silence voices that do not agree. Another thing that will happen when the beast system is rising to prominence is look out for the rise of that's the enemy. That's the enemy. It's amazing how grown people who have education of some level in America use the word hate. You will see someone visibly in her 60s. You're speaking Bible verses, and then she will come and say, you speak hate. It's a generalized brainwashing. And the choice of word, the word that is favorite in the mouth of people in the United States to use the word hates should tell you that the Bible never lied when it spoke of haters of God. Because to say that scripture and speaking the truth of the word of God and the prophetic truth of God on his behalf is hate, reveals the mirror image inside that person, that they actually are one who hates God, for they do not recognize him in his pure, true form. They love the false version of him. And so when he comes as he is, blunt and ready to purge and thresh the church, it is called hate. It is so telling how people advertise who they are. Watch in the future beast system for the rise of that's the enemy. That's the enemy. That's the enemy of our progress. That's the enemy of change. They will turn people in Africa against one another by labeling the people who don't want these extreme changes as people who are stuck in the past. Dinosaurs. They don't see the bright global future. The best and the brightest African minds will be invited behind closed doors. I'm going to say everything. The best and the brightest African minds, whether you have schooled locally or whether they sent you overseas or whatever and you came back, they will invite you behind closed doors and they will speak words painting to you a whole new vista, a whole new world. I want you to know when you go into those rooms, they are selling the beast system to you. The 15-minute cities. Let us develop this town so that you never need. They will tell you, what if this town? Would you still go to Italy if we set up satellite links in this town? Would you still really need to take trips? Would you really want to travel if we created heaven on earth? They will modernize the place. They will modernize it, and it will look like they're modernizing it for your comfort. But it's only so when they begin their disease eradication programs, just like colonialists used to do in ancient history, how they would build up the cities in African nations. They weren't building them up for the people they originally found in those places. They were building them up so that when they would invite their wives and their children and their friends, come over, Henry, and see this amazing nation. It's hot, but it's interesting. They were building up those places so that they could feel comfortable. When they were spraying for mosquitoes, they weren't doing it for you as Africans. They were spraying for their own lack of strength against Nile fever and yellow fever and mosquitoes. They will build it up and make it beautiful because then they're going to spray the so-called cockroaches in there, and then that will be the new holiday destination for the elites. Now they will look at the lions and the giraffe without you around. This is the plan. This is the lamp falling from the heaven to hit the head of Truman so Truman can wake up and realize that not everything that says convention, that says symposium, that says conference, when you go to those places, you don't go with stars in your eyes. You go with your ears open so that you can be aware of the beast language. This is for everywhere. This is for Southeast Asia, and this is for South America. For you are the last places that they are waiting to extrapolate this plan. The plan cannot work. Please see my hands. To those of you who are listening by audio, try to imagine that one hand is up by my temple and the other hand is down by my collarbone. You cannot be successful in executing a plan when you have disparities this big. When you have some nations that have so many things, they're so much more advanced in the world. And then you have some nations that are so far behind in stuff that they still don't have digital wallets yet and stuff like that. The beast will work on an even playing field. Everything must be evened out. Everything must be normalized so the plan can really run. It's not necessary, for instance, to build massive centers. It is quite possible that places in Africa will simply be turned into mass production centers. Why? Because these people have always seen you as free labor. You have always looked good as a worker. The less the worker gets paid, the better. The first designation was slave. The next designation is low wage. The third designation is neocolonialism. The fourth designation will be beast slave, working for credits to survive in a society that is fully automated. There's no country that is going to resist this thing en masse. So if people have ears to hear, then you hear that you are going to be living in a society that is going to build itself up around you without your permission, without your buy-in, without whether you like it or not.